She was 8 months pregnant, standing at the top of the courthouse stairs, about to fight for her freedom from a monster she once called husband. And then, two hands slammed into her shoulders, full force. His mistress pushed her down those marble steps, while dozens of people watched in horror. But here's what that mistress didn't know. Here's what her cheating husband never saw coming. The woman they tried to destroy. She wasn't just a pregnant wife fighting for custody. She was a forensic accountant, a bloodhound who spent her entire career finding lies hidden in numbers. And for 3 years, she had been quietly collecting evidence, waiting for the right moment to strike. What happens next will have you on the edge of your seat, because this story has more twists than a mountain road. Fake psychiatric reports, offshore accounts worth millions, a frame job so elaborate it almost worked, and a courtroom showdown that will give you chills. By the end, you'll understand why some women don't just survive, they rise. Stay with me until the very last word. Trust me, the ending is worth it. And if stories like this speak to your soul, hit that subscribe button and join our family. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to fight for yourself when everyone expected you to stay silent? Now let's begin. The marble steps of the Henderson County Courthouse gleamed under the morning sun like polished bone. Claire Bennett stood near the top of that staircase, one hand resting gently on her swollen belly, the other clutching a folder thick with documents she had spent 8 months collecting. She was 32 years old, 8 months pregnant, and about to fight for everything she had left. The courthouse hummed with its usual morning chaos. Lawyers hurried past with briefcases, their polished shoes clicking against the marble in a rhythm that sounded almost like a countdown. Families clustered on benches, whispering nervously about custody battles and divorce settlements. Somewhere down the hall, a bailiff called out a name from the docket. Claire barely heard any of it yet. Her mind was focused on the hearing ahead, the one that would determine whether she could finally escape the 3-year nightmare her marriage had become. She had chosen her outfit carefully that morning, standing in front of her closet for nearly an hour before making a decision. A simple navy blue maternity dress. Comfortable flats, nothing flashy, nothing that could be used against her. Daniel's lawyers would look for any excuse to paint her as unstable or dramatic. She refused to give them ammunition. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her brother Marcus. Remember, do not engage. Let the evidence speak. Stay calm no matter what he says. I believe in you. Claire typed back a quick response, her fingers trembling slightly. I know. I am ready. But she was not ready. Not for what came next. She thought about the woman she used to be. 3 years ago, Claire Bennett had been a rising star at Morrison & Associates, one of the most respected accounting firms in the state. She had a corner office, a growing client list, and a reputation for finding discrepancies that other accountants missed. Her colleagues called her the Bloodhound because once she caught the scent of financial irregularity, she never let go until she found the source. Then she met Daniel Bennett at a charity gala. He was charming, successful, devastatingly handsome. He pursued her with the kind of intensity that made her feel like the most important woman in the world. Within 6 months, they were married. Within a year, she had quit her job at his insistence. He said he wanted to take care of her. He said her long hours were hurting their relationship. He said a lot of things that sounded like love but felt like chains. By the time she realized what was happening, she had lost everything. Her career, her friends, her sense of self. And Daniel had moved on to Vanessa Cole, a woman half his age who wore red dresses and smiled at Claire with the kind of pity that felt like poison. But today, Claire was taking her life back. Today, she was fighting. The click of stiletto heels echoed behind her, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the ambient noise of the courthouse like a knife through silk. Claire's stomach tightened before she even turned around. She knew that sound. She had heard it in her nightmares for months. She had heard it echoing through the hallways of her own home when Daniel thought she was asleep. A voice sliced through the air, dripping with venom and false sweetness. Well, well, look who decided to show up. Claire turned slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. Standing 10 feet away was Vanessa Cole, wearing a tight red dress that belonged in a nightclub rather than a courthouse. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, cascading over her shoulders in waves that probably took an hour to create. Her makeup was flawless. Her smile was pure poison. Vanessa was 29 years old, a former model turned lifestyle influencer with 500,000 followers who had no idea that the luxury lifestyle she showcased was funded by a married man. For the past 2 years, she had been sleeping with Claire's husband. But she was not just a mistress. She was a weapon Daniel had deployed to systematically destroy Claire's confidence, her sanity, and her sense of self-worth. Claire swallowed hard and forced her voice to remain steady. Vanessa, this is not the place. Vanessa stepped closer, her heels clicking against the marble like a countdown to disaster. Not the place? She laughed, the sound brittle and cruel, echoing off the high ceilings. You mean the place where you are trying to steal everything Daniel built? The place where you are playing victim to get sympathy from some old judge? That is rich coming from you. Claire took a step backward, her hand instinctively tightening over her belly. She could feel her daughter moving inside her, a gentle flutter that reminded her why she was here, why she was fighting. I'm not doing this with you. Please leave me alone. But Vanessa was already closing the distance between them, her eyes bright with something dark and dangerous. Claire recognized that look. She had seen it on Daniel's face countless times before he said something designed to make her question her own reality. It was the look of someone who enjoyed causing pain. You really thought a baby would make him stay? Vanessa hissed, her voice low enough that only Claire could hear. You thought getting pregnant would fix your pathetic little marriage. Like trapping him with a child would make him love you again. But here's the truth, Claire. He never wanted you. He never loved you. You were convenient, you were useful, and now you are just in the way. Claire felt the words land like physical blows, each one finding the vulnerable spots she had tried so hard to protect. Her throat tightened, her eyes burned, but she refused to cry. Not here, not in front of this woman who had taken everything from her. And that baby, Vanessa continued, pointing at Claire's stomach with one manicured finger, her nail polish the same shade of red as her dress. That baby is just an inconvenience Daniel will deal with once the paperwork is done. He told me himself. He said he wishes you had never gotten pregnant. He said the baby was your last desperate attempt to hold on to something that was never really yours. The cruelty of the words stole Claire's breath. She knew Daniel was capable of terrible things. But hearing that he had said such things about their daughter, about the child growing inside her, made something shift in Claire's chest. The fear began to harden into something else, something stronger. I am walking away now, Claire said quietly, her voice steadier than she expected. She turned toward the courtroom entrance, desperate to put distance between herself and the venom pouring from Vanessa's lips. That was her mistake, turning her back. Do not you dare walk away from me. Vanessa's hand shot out and grabbed Claire's arm, her fingers digging in hard enough to leave bruises. She spun Claire around with surprising force. Claire stumbled, her balance already compromised by her pregnancy and the uncomfortable flat she had chosen for their practicality rather than their grip. She pulled her arm free and took another step backward, but she had forgotten how close she was to the stairs. You want everyone to feel sorry for you, Vanessa snarled, her voice rising loud enough that people nearby began to turn and stare. You want to play the victim. Poor Claire, abandoned by her husband. Poor Claire, all alone with her sad little baby. Well, fine. Let me help you look the part. 2 hands, flat against Claire's shoulders, full force. The push happened so fast that Claire's brain barely registered it before gravity took over. Her foot slipped on the polished marble that suddenly felt as slick as ice. Her arms windmilled wildly, reaching for something, anything, to stop her fall. The world tilted backward, the high ceiling of the courthouse spinning above her like a carousel gone wrong. And then she was falling. Time seemed to slow as Claire's body arced toward the stairs. In that frozen moment, suspended between standing and falling, one thought screamed through her mind louder than any other. Louder than the fear, louder than the pain she knew was coming. The baby. Protect the baby. She twisted mid-fall, using every ounce of strength she had to curl her body around her stomach. She sacrificed her shoulder and hip to shield her child, choosing without hesitation to take the impact herself rather than risk her daughter. The first step slammed into her back like a concrete fist. Pain exploded through her spine. The second step hit her ribs with a crack that she felt more than heard. The third sent her tumbling sideways, her body rolling and bouncing like a rag doll, until she finally crashed to a stop at the bottom of the staircase. Pain exploded through every part of her body. She could not breathe. She could not think. She could not move. She could only lie there on the cold marble floor, one arm wrapped around her belly, the other reaching out desperately for something to hold on to. Somewhere above her, someone screamed, "Oh my God, she is pregnant. Someone help her. Call 911. Somewhere above her, heels clicked rapidly in retreat. And somewhere deep inside her, Claire felt her baby go very, very still. The next few minutes blurred together like watercolors bleeding into each other. Faces appeared above Claire, strangers with wide eyes and open mouths, their features distorted by the tears that clouded her vision. Voices shouted over each other, a cacophony of panic and concern that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Hands reached down to help, but were waved away by someone with authority. "Do not move her." A man's voice, calm but urgent, cutting through the chaos with professional clarity. "She is pregnant. We need paramedics now. Someone get security. Nobody leaves this building until we know what happened." Claire tried to speak, but only a weak whisper escaped her lips. Her voice felt like it was coming from very far away, from someone else entirely. "My baby. Please. My baby." The words came out broken, barely audible, swallowed by the noise around her. She tried again, putting every ounce of strength she had left into the syllables. "Please, someone help my baby." A woman knelt beside her, an older woman with gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes that reminded Claire of her own mother. The woman wore a lavender cardigan and smelled faintly of rose perfume, a comforting scent that cut through the sharp smell of fear and cold marble. She placed a gentle hand on Claire's arm, careful not to move her. "Stay still, sweetheart. Help is coming. You just keep breathing, in and out, nice and slow. You are going to be okay. Your baby is going to be okay." But breathing felt impossible. Every inhale sent shards of pain through Claire's ribs, like someone was stabbing her with broken glass over and over again. Every exhale felt like it might be her last, like her lungs had forgotten how to work and might never remember again. She kept her arm locked around her belly, terrified that if she moved even an inch, something terrible would happen. Something that could not be undone. The woman in lavender began stroking Claire's hair, the gesture so tender and maternal that Claire almost broke down completely. "Shh, shh, I am right here. I am not going anywhere. You are not alone." Claire wanted to thank her, wanted to grab onto that kindness like a lifeline, but she could not form the words. All she could do was lie there, feeling the cold seeping into her bones, wondering if her daughter could feel the cold too, wondering if her daughter could feel anything at all. The crowd around her grew larger, a wall of legs and shoes and hushed whispers. She heard fragments of conversation cutting through the fog of shock and pain, voices rising and falling like waves crashing against the shore. "Did you see what happened? That woman in red pushed her. I saw the whole thing, both hands right in the shoulders." "She pushed a pregnant woman? Who does that? What kind of monster pushes a pregnant woman down the stairs?" "Someone call security. Do not let her leave. She is trying to sneak out the side door." "That one in the red dress, I got it on video. I was recording because I thought she looked so beautiful, the pregnant lady in the blue dress. She had this glow about her. Then that other woman just attacked her out of nowhere. Did you hear what she said before the push? She called the baby an inconvenience. Can you imagine?" The marble floor was cold against Claire's cheek, so cold it almost burned. She could feel every crack and imperfection in the stone, every tiny ridge pressing into her skin like it was trying to leave a permanent impression. She closed her eyes against the harsh fluorescent lights overhead and focused on the only thing that mattered, the tiny life inside her. The daughter she had already named in secret, whispering the name to her belly late at night when she was alone and Daniel was out doing whatever it was he did until 2 in the morning. The future she had been fighting so hard to protect. "Please," she whispered to her belly, her lips barely moving, her breath fogging against the cold floor. "Please be okay. I will do anything. I will give anything. Just please be okay. I need you to be okay. I cannot do this without you. You are the only good thing left." She thought she felt a tiny flutter in response, the smallest movement, barely perceptible. Or maybe it was just wishful thinking. Maybe it was just her desperate heart creating hope where there was none. Two paramedics arrived within minutes, though it felt like hours. A man in his 30s with steady hands and a calm demeanor, and a woman with red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail who moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had seen situations like this before. They knelt beside Claire, their presence somehow creating a bubble of order in the chaos. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" The male paramedic's voice was gentle but professional. "My name is James. This is my partner, Sarah. We are here to help you. Can you tell me your name?" "Claire." "Claire Bennett?" "Okay, Claire. Can you tell me where it hurts?" "Everywhere, but mostly my back, my ribs, and I am 8 months pregnant. Please, my baby. Is my baby okay?" "We are going to check on your baby right now," Sarah said, already unzipping a medical bag. "I need you to stay as still as possible. Can you do that for me?" Claire nodded, the small movement sending new waves of pain through her neck and shoulders. She watched through tear-blurred eyes as Sarah strapped a fetal monitor around her belly with gentle hands and serious expressions. The device felt cold and clinical against her skin, but Claire did not care. All she cared about was the reading it would give. Claire held her breath as they waited for the reading. The silence stretched like a rubber band being pulled to its breaking point. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. The longest seconds of her entire life, longer than the seconds before her wedding, longer than the seconds waiting for the pregnancy test to show its results, longer than anything she had ever experienced. Then the machine beeped, a heartbeat, irregular but present, weak but fighting, just like Claire. But Sarah's face tightened with concern, a look she tried to hide but could not quite manage. Her eyes flickered to James and something passed between them. A silent communication that Claire could not decode but understood instinctively was not good news. "What is it?" Claire demanded, her voice cracking. "Tell me, I need to know." "We need to move her now," Sarah said to James, her voice dropping to a tone that was clearly meant to be too low for Claire to hear. "There are signs of fetal distress, possible placental abruption. We need to get her to the medical unit immediately." Claire did not know exactly what those words meant, but she understood enough to know they were bad. Very bad. The kind of bad that ended in hospitals and surgeries and tiny coffins. Tears spilled down her cheeks as they lifted her onto a stretcher. Hot tears that mixed with the cold sweat on her face and dripped onto the white sheets below. "What does that mean?" Claire grabbed Sarah's arm with surprising strength, her fingers digging in. "Please, tell me what is happening to my baby." Sarah hesitated for just a moment, then placed her hand over Claire's. "It means we need to get you to a doctor who can do a full examination. It means we are taking this very seriously. But your baby still has a heartbeat, Claire. That is what matters right now. Your baby is still fighting." "My brother," Claire managed to say, forcing the words out through gritted teeth. "Marcus Hale. He is here somewhere. He is a lawyer. He was supposed to meet me outside the courtroom. Please find him. He needs to know what happened." The younger paramedic nodded, his expression softening with sympathy. "We will make sure he knows where you are. Right now, we need to focus on you and your baby. That is our priority." As they wheeled her down the hallway, the fluorescent lights passing overhead like a strobe, Claire caught a glimpse of red at the edge of her vision. Her heart clenched like a fist. Vanessa stood near the wall, her back pressed against the marble, as if she was trying to disappear into it, to melt into the stone and escape what she had done. Her face was pale beneath her perfect makeup, the color drained from her cheeks like water from a sink. Her hands were trembling at her sides, the same hands that had just pushed a pregnant woman down a flight of stairs. For one brief moment, their eyes met across the crowded hallway. Claire expected to see triumph in that gaze. She expected cruelty, satisfaction, victory. The smug smile of a woman who had finally eliminated her competition, who had removed the obstacle standing between her and the life she wanted. Instead, she saw fear. Raw, undisguised fear. The fear of someone who had just realized they had gone too far. The fear of consequences that could not be avoided. The fear of a woman who had thought she was untouchable and was just beginning to understand that she was not. "Good," Claire thought with a ferocity that surprised her. "Be afraid. You should be afraid." And standing next to Vanessa, his arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders like she was the victim here, was Daniel, her husband, the father of her child, the man who had promised to love and protect her until death do them part, the man who had looked into her eyes on their wedding day with tears streaming down his face and made vows he had never intended to keep, the man who had held her hand through her first ultrasound and cried when he heard their daughter's heartbeat for the first time. He was not running to Claire's side. He was not demanding to know if she was okay. He was not even looking at her, not even acknowledging her existence. His attention was focused entirely on Vanessa, whispering something in her ear with an intensity that suggested he was giving very specific instructions, probably telling her what to say, how to spin the narrative, how to turn this around so that Claire was somehow the villain of this story. He was comforting his mistress while his pregnant wife lay bleeding on the floor. The realization hit Claire harder than the stairs had. In that moment, watching her husband console the woman who had just tried to kill their daughter, she understood something she had been refusing to accept for 3 years. Daniel did not love her. He had never loved her. She was not his wife. She was his property. And now that she was fighting back, now that she was trying to leave, she had become his enemy. Someone in the crowd shouted at him. An older man with a gray beard and a briefcase who looked like he had probably been a lawyer for 40 years. His voice was thick with disgust. "Your wife is on the floor, you heartless bastard. She might be losing your baby. What the hell is wrong with you?" Daniel's response carried clearly across the hallway, loud enough for everyone to hear, delivered with a dismissive wave of his hand that made Claire want to scream. "She is dramatic. She probably tripped. She does this for attention all the time. Trust me, I have been dealing with her hysterics for years. If I ran to her side every time she created a scene, I would never get anything done." Several people in the crowd gasped. Someone muttered an obscenity. The old man with the briefcase looked like he wanted to punch Daniel in the face, and Claire wished he would. The words landed like another blow, adding emotional devastation to physical injury. But Claire had no strength left to react, no strength left to defend herself against his lies. She simply closed her eyes and let the paramedics wheel her away, focusing on the tiny heartbeat that was still fighting inside her. The only thing that mattered now, the last thing she heard before the doors closed behind her, was Marcus's voice, cutting through the chaos like a blade forged in fury. She had never heard her brother sound like that before, never heard such raw, undisguised rage in his tone. "What did you do to my sister?" The examination room was small and sterile, filled with machines that beeped and hummed in a language Claire did not understand. The walls were painted a pale green that was probably meant to be soothing, but instead reminded her of hospitals and bad news and the room where her mother had spent her final days. Wires connected her to monitors that displayed numbers and graphs she could not interpret, lines going up and down in patterns that might mean everything or nothing at all. She lay on the bed with the fetal monitor still strapped around her belly, watching the numbers fluctuate on the screen above her, trying to find meaning in the rises and falls. The screen showed her baby's heartbeat as a jagged line, sometimes strong, sometimes weak, always uncertain. Claire stared at that line like her life depended on it. Because it did. Her life, the only life that mattered to her anymore, depended entirely on that jagged line continuing to move. A doctor entered, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and steady hands that suggested decades of experience. Her hair was silver-streaked and pulled back in a practical bun. She moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who had delivered hundreds of babies and handled hundreds of emergencies. Her name tag read Dr. Patterson. "Mrs. Bennett, I am Dr. Patterson. I am the head of obstetrics here at the Courthouse Medical Unit. I need to run some tests to assess both your condition and your baby's condition. Can you tell me exactly what happened?" Claire recounted the fall, her voice breaking several times as she relived each terrible moment. She described Vanessa's approach, the click of those stiletto heels against the marble, the cruel words about her baby being an inconvenience, the grab that had bruised her arm, the spin that had disoriented her, the push that had sent her flying backward into nothing, the endless tumble down the stairs, each step slamming into her body like a hammer, the way she had twisted desperately to protect her stomach, sacrificing her own body to shield her daughter. The doctor listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each detail, making notes on a tablet she held. Her pen moved steadily across the screen, documenting everything, creating a record that might be needed later. When Claire finished, Dr. Patterson set down the tablet and met her eyes directly. "You did exactly the right thing by shielding your abdomen," Dr. Patterson said finally, her voice gentle but honest. "The way you twisted during the fall almost certainly prevented more serious trauma to the baby. Your instincts may have saved your daughter's life, Mrs. Bennett. I want you to know that." Claire felt tears prick her eyes again. She had not thought about it in the moment. She had not made a conscious decision. Her body had simply moved on its own, protecting the most precious thing she had ever known. "That said," Dr. Patterson continued, "I am seeing some concerning signs on the monitor that we need to address." Claire's heart stopped, actually stopped, for just a fraction of a second before resuming with a painful thud. "Concerning signs? There is irregular heartbeat activity and possible bleeding near the placenta." The doctor's voice was calm, measured, designed to inform without causing panic. "We need to do an ultrasound immediately to get a clearer picture of what is happening inside. I want you to know that irregular heartbeat activity is common after trauma like this. It does not necessarily mean the worst, but we need to see exactly what we are dealing with." The next few minutes felt like hours stretched into eternity. A nurse wheeled in an ultrasound machine, its screen dark and waiting. Claire watched with desperate eyes as Dr. Patterson prepared the equipment, covering the wand in gel, adjusting settings on the machine. Every second felt like a lifetime. "This gel will be cold," the doctor warned. "I apologize for that." Claire barely registered the cold. All she could focus on was the screen as it flickered to life, showing the inside of her body, the dark space where her daughter lived. She searched for any sign of movement, any indication that her baby was still fighting. The probe moved slowly, methodically. The doctor's face revealed nothing, a practiced mask of professional neutrality that gave Claire no comfort. Seconds ticked by. The machine hummed. Claire forgot to breathe. Then she saw it, a tiny flutter on the screen, a heartbeat, weak and unsteady, but unmistakably present. And then movement, a tiny hand opening and closing, fingers stretching outward as if reaching for something, reaching for her mother. Claire choked on a sob. The relief was so intense it felt like physical pain. Dr. Patterson exhaled slowly, and Claire could hear the relief beneath her professional composure. "The heartbeat is stabilizing. That is very good news. Your baby is a fighter, Mrs. Bennett. Look at those hands. She is already practicing her grip." "But there is more," Claire said. It was not a question. She could see it in the doctor's eyes, the slight hesitation before the good news, the tension that had not fully released. "But there is more," the doctor confirmed. "There is some bleeding, Mrs. Bennett, not severe but concerning. It appears to be a minor placental abruption. The placenta has partially separated from the uterine wall. Right now, the separation is small and the bleeding is contained. But we need to monitor you closely for the next hour at minimum. Any additional stress or physical trauma could trigger more serious complications." "What kind of complications?" Claire asked, even though part of her did not want to know. Dr. Patterson met her eyes with honesty. "Worst case, severe bleeding, emergency delivery, risk to both you and the baby. But we are not there, Mrs. Bennett. We are nowhere close to there. Right now, your baby is stable, you are stable, and my job is to keep it that way. You need to stay calm and still. I know that is incredibly difficult given everything that has happened, but your baby needs you to stay strong." Claire nodded, relief and fear battling for control of her emotions like two armies fighting over contested ground. Her hand found her belly, pressing gently against the place where she had seen that tiny hand reaching. "But she is okay? Right now, in this moment, my baby is okay?" "For now, yes." The doctor placed a reassuring hand on Claire's arm, and the warmth of that touch almost broke Claire completely. "You both are. Let us focus on keeping it that way. I am going to arrange for continuous monitoring and additional tests. I will be back to check on you in 15 minutes. Try to rest." The doctor left to arrange additional tests. Claire lay alone in the silence that followed, one hand resting on her belly, trying to send every ounce of love and strength she had through her palm and into the tiny life growing inside her. She imagined her love as a warm light, golden and protective, wrapping around her daughter like a shield. She thought about her mother, who had died 2 years ago from cancer that had been found too late, Her mother, who had never gotten to see Claire pregnant, who would never hold her grandchild, who would never sing lullabies or bake birthday cakes or give the kind of advice that only grandmothers could give. Claire had imagined so many times calling her mother with the news of her pregnancy, had imagined the joy in her voice, the tears, the immediate planning of baby showers and nursery decorations. Instead, she had told her mother's grave, kneeling in the grass of the cemetery with tears streaming down her face and no one to hold her. "I wish you were here, Mom," Claire whispered to the empty room, her voice cracking on every word. "I do not know if I can do this alone. I am so scared, and I have no one. Daniel was supposed to be my person, and he turned out to be a monster. And now I am lying in this room, and I do not know if my baby is going to be okay, and I just need you. I need you so much." The door opened again, and for a moment Claire's heart leaped with hope that somehow, impossibly, her wish had been answered, that the universe had heard her desperate prayer and sent her mother back to her, just for a moment, just long enough to tell her everything would be okay. But it was Marcus who stepped inside, and that was almost as good. Her brother's face was tight with controlled fury that barely masked the terror underneath. His suit was rumpled in a way that would have horrified him any other day, his tie loosened, his usually immaculate hair disheveled, as if he had been running his hands through it over and over. He had clearly been running through the courthouse searching for her, asking everyone he passed, probably threatening Daniel's lawyer with things that were not strictly legal. Claire. His voice cracked on her name, just two syllables breaking apart under the weight of his fear. He moved to her bedside in 3 quick strides and took her hand, his fingers squeezing tight enough to hurt, anchoring her to reality. "Are you okay? Is the baby okay? I came as fast as I could. The paramedics told me where to find you. God, Claire, when I saw you fall, when I saw you lying there." He could not finish the sentence. His eyes were wet, and Marcus never cried. Not at their mother's funeral, not at their father's before that. But now, looking at his sister in a hospital bed with monitors attached to her belly, he was crying. "She is stable. For now." Claire's lips trembled as she spoke, the words coming out shaky and broken. "The doctor said there is some bleeding, but it is not severe. They need to monitor me. But for now, she's okay. Marcus, she pushed me. Vanessa pushed me down the stairs. She did it on purpose. She said horrible things about my baby, and then she just pushed me. And Daniel just stood there. He did not even come to check on me. He said I was being dramatic. He said I do this for attention. I know." Marcus's jaw clenched so hard Claire could see the muscles jumping beneath his skin like they were trying to break free. "I heard everything he said. I wanted to kill him, Claire. I have never wanted to hurt anyone in my entire life. But in that moment, I wanted to wrap my hands around his throat. I also talked to security. And the camera that covers that staircase malfunctioned this morning." Marcus's voice dripped with bitter irony. "Conveniently, out of all the cameras in this entire building, the one that covers those specific stairs stopped working at 7:30 this morning. There is no footage." Claire's heart sank like a stone thrown into deep water, descending into darkness with no hope of ever surfacing. "What? That cannot be a coincidence." "It is not." Daniel's already spinning the narrative. Marcus's voice was tight with barely controlled anger, each word forced out through gritted teeth. "He is telling everyone you tripped and grabbed Vanessa for balance. He is saying you fell because of your own clumsiness, because pregnant women are unsteady on their feet, because he has been warning you for months to be more careful on stairs. He has his lawyer drawing up statements as we speak, getting ahead of the story, controlling the narrative before anyone can question it. But there were witnesses." Claire sat up despite the pain, despite the doctor's orders, fueled by outrage that burned through her exhaustion. Dozens of people saw what happened. They saw her push me. They heard what she said about my baby. Marcus nodded grimly. "I know, and I am collecting their statements now. Rita Mitchell, the clerk I have known for 10 years, is helping me track down everyone who was in that hallway. We have names, we have contact information. But Claire, I need you to understand something important. Daniel has been preparing for this moment. Maybe not this exact moment, but a moment like it. He wants to paint you as unstable. He wants to use this incident against you in the custody hearing. He is going to try to say that you are clumsy because you are emotionally unstable, that you fell because you were having some kind of episode. The words hit Claire like ice water poured over an open wound. He planned this? I do not know if he planned the push specifically. Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully, the lawyer in him weighing every syllable. But I know he has been building a case against you for months. He has doctors ready to testify about your mental state during the pregnancy. He has records documenting your so-called paranoid delusions about his affair. He has created a paper trail designed to make you look crazy, and he has been adding to it for at least 6 months, maybe longer. Claire closed her eyes against the tears that threatened to fall. 3 years. 3 years of marriage to a man who had been methodically constructing her destruction while smiling at her over breakfast. Every time he told her she was imagining his infidelity when she could smell another woman's perfume on his collar, he was building his case. Every time he made her doubt her own perceptions when she found receipts for dinners she had not attended, he was adding another piece of evidence. Every time he convinced her that her suspicions were symptoms of instability rather than evidence of his betrayal, he was laying the groundwork for this exact moment. It had all been groundwork, foundation for this moment. She had been so focused on surviving each day, on just getting through the nights when he came home late and the mornings when he looked at her like she was a stranger, that she had not seen the trap being built around her. She had been living in the middle of a spider's web and never noticed the silk tightening around her. "What do I do?" she whispered, her voice small and lost, the voice of a woman who had forgotten how to fight. Marcus squeezed her hand tighter, his grip almost painful but somehow exactly what she needed. "You fight. We fight. Together. I am not just your brother anymore, Claire. I am your lawyer, and I am going to tear Daniel Bennett apart in that courtroom. But first, we need to make sure you and the baby are safe and healthy. Everything else comes after that. Can you do that for me? Can you focus on staying calm for the next hour?" Claire took a deep breath, feeling her daughter move inside her, a gentle flutter like butterfly wings against her palm. A reminder of why she could not give up, why she had to keep fighting even when everything in her wanted to surrender. For her, I can do anything. 1 hour later, the doctor returned with news that made Claire's chest loosen for the first time since the fall. Dr. Patterson's face was cautiously optimistic as she reviewed the latest readings on her tablet, scrolling through numbers and graphs with an expression that suggested good things. "The baby's heartbeat is strong and steady now," the doctor announced, and Claire felt tears of relief spring to her eyes. "The bleeding has stopped completely. The partial abruption appears to have stabilized, and there is no sign of further separation. The initial crisis has passed, Mrs. Bennett. Your daughter appears to be doing remarkably well, considering the trauma she and you both experienced. She is definitely a fighter." Dr. Patterson smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her professional demeanor into something warmer. "Just like her mother, I suspect." Claire exhaled a breath she felt like she had been holding for days. "Thank you. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to me. I think I do." The doctor's eyes were kind. "I have been doing this for 30 years. I have seen a lot of mothers in this room, and I have learned that the bond between a mother and her child is stronger than almost anything else in this world. You protected your daughter today, Mrs. Bennett. Your body knew what to do even when your mind was in chaos. That is love. That is instinct. That is something no amount of money or power can buy." Claire felt tears slide down her cheeks, but these were different tears. Not tears of fear or desperation, tears of gratitude, tears of hope. "You should really rest for a few more hours," Dr. Patterson continued. "Your body has been through significant trauma. You have bruised ribs, contusions on your back and hip, and your blood pressure is still elevated from stress. None of that is good for you or your baby." But Claire was not interested in rest anymore. Something had shifted inside her during that hour of waiting, during those endless minutes of watching monitors and praying. The fear had not disappeared, but it had transformed. It had crystallized into something harder, something fiercer, something that would not be pushed down or silenced or gaslit anymore. "I need to get back out there," she told the doctor as she pushed herself into a sitting position, ignoring the protests of her bruised ribs. The pain was nothing compared to what she had already survived. My husband is out there right now trying to take my daughter away from me. He is spreading lies about me to anyone who will listen, and I am not going to lie here while he does it. Mrs. Bennet, I really must advise against that. The doctor's eyebrows rose with concern. You should stay and continue monitoring. The situation could still change. Your baby needs you healthy and rested. Claire's voice hardened with determination she had not felt in years, maybe ever. The determination of a woman who had finally stopped making excuses for the people who hurt her. I have spent 3 years resting while he lied to me about where he was every night, resting while he cheated on me with a woman who just tried to kill my daughter, resting while he stole my confidence, my career, and my sense of reality piece by piece until I did not recognize myself anymore. Resting while he convinced me I was crazy for seeing what was right in front of my face. I am done resting. I am done being quiet. I am done being the good wife who does not make waves. Today, I make waves. The doctor studied her for a long moment, and something shifted in her expression. Something like respect flickered in her eyes, replacing the professional concern. Then she nodded slowly. I cannot force you to stay, Dr. Patterson said finally. And honestly, I understand. I had a husband once who tried to make me small. It took me 10 years to leave him. I wish I had found my voice sooner. She handed Claire a card. This is my personal number. If you feel any pain, any dizziness, any bleeding, any cramping, you call me immediately. Day or night, I mean it, I promise. Claire took the card, her fingers closing around it like a talisman. Marcus helped Claire into a wheelchair, a precaution she reluctantly accepted only because she knew arguing would waste time she did not have. Every minute she spent in this room was a minute Daniel spent poisoning the narrative, turning witnesses to his side, building his case against her. As they moved through the courthouse halls, passing clusters of people who stared and whispered, Claire felt something shifting inside her. The fear was still there, coiled tight in her chest like a snake ready to strike. It would probably always be there, she realized. Fear was not something you conquered. It was something you carried, something you learned to fight alongside rather than against. But underneath the fear, something else was growing. Something harder, something fiercer, something that had been dormant for 3 years and was finally waking up. She had spent too long being the victim. Today, she would start being the survivor. They found Rita Mitchell waiting near the information desk, practically vibrating with barely contained energy. Rita was a courthouse clerk in her mid-40s, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, a sharper tongue, and a network of contacts that seemed to span the entire county. She had worked in this building for 20 years and had seen every kind of drama imaginable, from custody battles that turned violent to divorce proceedings that revealed decades of hidden secrets. But today, she looked personally invested in a way that went beyond professional interest. Her eyes were bright with righteous anger, and her perfectly manicured hands were clutching a folder that looked like it contained ammunition. Honey, Rita said as Claire approached, her voice low and urgent, I have been doing some digging while you were in medical. That man of yours, he is even worse than I thought, and I already thought he was pretty damn bad. What did you find? Rita's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. That man bought his mistress a Porsche last month. A brand new red one. $90,000. And guess what he told you that same week? Claire's stomach dropped. That we could not afford the prenatal vitamins the doctor recommended. That we needed to cut back on expenses because the business was struggling. Exactly. Rita shook her head in disgust. The audacity of some people is truly breathtaking. While you were taking prenatal vitamins from the dollar store because he said the good ones were too expensive, his mistress was driving around town in a $90,000 car. Despite everything, despite the pain and the fear and the uncertainty, Claire found herself laughing. It was a small sound, rusty from disuse but real. The first genuine laugh she had managed in months. You have been looking into his finances? Rita waved her hand dismissively, her rings catching the light. I know people who know people. My cousin works at the bank where he has his business accounts. Not that I am supposed to know that, of course. And let me tell you, what I found would make your head spin, but that is not the important part right now. She lowered her voice and leaned closer, her eyes gleaming with triumph. I found 4 witnesses who saw the whole thing. Good, solid citizens who are willing to testify. A retired teacher, a nurse on her lunch break, a college student, and a sweet old lady who has been coming to this courthouse for 30 years. And one of them? She was recording on her phone. Claire's heart leaped so hard she felt it in her throat. Her hands gripped the arms of her wheelchair. She got the push on video, clear as day, honey, both hands, full force. Audio too, every horrible word that woman in red said about your baby, recorded for posterity. That woman in the red dress is going down, and she is taking your husband with her. Marcus stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking into high gear. Where is this witness? I need to speak with her immediately. Rita pointed down the hall with a perfectly manicured nail. Conference room B, her name is Dorothy Chambers. Sweet old lady, 72 years old, retired librarian, been coming to this courthouse for 30 years to watch cases because she finds it more interesting than television and porn. Let me tell you, she is angry on your behalf. Angrier than I have ever seen her, and I have seen her angry about a lot of things. She started recording because she thought Claire looked beautiful standing at the top of those stairs and wanted to capture the moment. Ended up capturing an assault instead. She is ready to testify, sign statements, go on the news, whatever you need. 20 minutes later, they had the video. Dorothy Chambers was exactly as Rita had described. A small woman with white hair curled neatly around her face, wearing a floral dress and sensible shoes. She had the kind of face that suggested she had spent her life surrounded by books and children, and her eyes were sharp behind gold-rimmed glasses. She played the video for them on her phone, her wrinkled hands shaking with indignation, her reading glasses perched on her nose. The footage was unmistakable, perfectly capturing the entire encounter from start to finish. The camera had been angled just right, catching Claire from the sun as she stood at the top of the stairs. They watched in silence as Video Vanessa approached, her red dress bright against the marble backdrop. They heard her cruel words, tinny but clear through the phone's speaker, every syllable dripping with venom. They watched her grab Claire's arm, fingers digging in hard. They watched the spin, Claire's body twisting off balance. They watched the push, both hands flat against Claire's shoulders, a deliberate, forceful shove. They watched the fall. Claire had to look away. Watching herself tumble down those stairs, watching herself twist to protect her belly, watching herself crumple at the bottom like a broken doll, was too much. She closed her eyes and focused on the steady rhythm of her baby's kicks against her palm. I already gave my statement to security, Dorothy said firmly when the video ended. Her voice was steady as bedrock, the voice of a woman who had spent decades commanding respect from rowdy children and would not tolerate any nonsense now. But I wanted you to see this first. What that woman did was criminal, pure criminal. She could have killed that baby. She could have killed them both. In my day, they would have thrown her in jail and lost the key. Marcus nodded, his expression shifting from concern to cold determination. The look Claire recognized from when he was building a case. The look that had won him dozens of trials and earned him a reputation as one of the best family lawyers in the state. Mrs. Chambers, he said, his voice formal but warm, would you be willing to testify in court if necessary? Absolutely. Dorothy drew herself up to her full height, which was not very tall but somehow seemed to fill the room. That poor girl could have lost her baby. Someone needs to answer for that. And I have nothing but time on my hands, young man. I am retired. I have no grandchildren of my own. I will testify as many times as you need me to. I will make sure everyone knows exactly what that woman in red did. For the first time all morning, Claire felt the faintest spark of hope igniting in her chest, like a match struck in darkness, like the first star appearing in a night sky. Maybe, just maybe, she was not as alone as she thought. The next hour moved quickly, events unfolding with a momentum that felt almost like justice. For the first time in 3 years, Claire was not on the defensive. She was not explaining herself, apologizing for her existence, questioning her own perceptions. She was watching Daniel's carefully constructed world begin to crack. Marcus presented the video evidence to the head of courthouse security, a stern man named Captain Rodriguez, who had worked in law enforcement for 30 years before taking this position. He had the build of a former military man and the eyes of someone who had seen every kind of human cruelty and was no longer surprised by any of it. He reviewed the footage twice, his face growing darker with each viewing. His jaw tightened until the muscles stood out like cords. His hands clenched into fists on the desk in front of him. "This is clear assault," Captain Rodriguez said finally, his voice heavy with disgust. "There is no ambiguity here. No reasonable person could look at this footage and see anything other than a deliberate attack on a pregnant woman. We are calling the police and detaining Miss Cole immediately. She is not leaving this building." Claire felt something loosen in her chest. Validation. After 3 years of being told she was crazy, paranoid, dramatic, someone in authority was finally confirming what she had known all along. She was not imagining things. She was not overreacting. What had happened to her was real, and it was wrong. Vanessa was located near the east exit, apparently trying to slip out unnoticed through a door that led to the employee parking lot. Security cameras caught her ducking through a hallway marked staff only, her high heels clutched in her hand, her eyes wild with panic. When security officers approached her, she tried to run. Her expensive heels were not designed for sprinting on marble floors, and her tight red dress was not designed for running at all. She made it approximately 15 feet before an officer caught her arm. "Get off me!" Her voice echoed through the hallway, shrill and desperate. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who my boyfriend is? Daniel Bennett will have your job. He will have all your jobs. You cannot do this to me." Within minutes, she was being escorted to a holding area, her designer heels clicking frantically against the floor as she protested her innocence in increasingly shrill tones. Her perfect hair had come loose, blonde strands flying around her face. Her makeup was smearing, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The carefully constructed facade was crumbling, and underneath it was nothing but a scared, desperate woman who had finally realized that money and connections could not save her from the consequences of her actions. Claire watched from her wheelchair as Vanessa was led past. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded hallway, and time seemed to slow. Vanessa's earlier fear had transformed into something uglier now. Hatred. Pure, undisguised hatred. The hatred of someone who blamed everyone but themselves for their circumstances. The hatred of a woman who had spent 2 years believing she had won and was now watching her victory turn to ash. "This is not over," Vanessa hissed as she passed, her voice venomous enough to strip paint. "Daniel will fix this. You will see. He always fixes everything. He has fixed bigger problems than you. You are nothing. You hear me? Nothing. A pathetic, fat, pregnant nobody who could not even keep her husband interested. He was bored with you before you even got married. He told me so himself." Claire said nothing in response. She did not need to. She simply watched Vanessa disappear around the corner, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders with each step the security officers took. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe properly, like the air was finally reaching her lungs without obstruction. Vanessa's words did not hurt anymore. They were the desperate flailing of a drowning woman, and Claire was done being pulled under. Daniel's lawyer, a slick man named Howard Pierce, who wore suits that cost more than Claire's car, and had the practiced smile of someone who had helped a lot of guilty people escape justice, rushed to intercept the security officers. His face was red with urgency, sweat beating at his temples. "My client did not witness any assault," Pierce insisted, his voice loud enough to carry. "This is a misunderstanding that can be resolved privately. There is no need to involve the police. I am sure we can all sit down like reasonable people and work this out." Captain Rodriguez shook his head, unmoved by Pierce's expensive suit or practiced charm. "There is video evidence, counselor. Your client's girlfriend pushed a pregnant woman down a flight of stairs in a government building. This is a criminal matter now, way above my pay grade to make go away. And frankly, even if I could make it go away, I would not want to." Pierce's face tightened, but he said nothing more. Even he knew when the ground had shifted beneath his feet. He pulled out his phone and began typing furiously, probably texting Daniel with damage control strategies. Marcus placed a hand on Claire's shoulder, his touch warm and reassuring. "This is good, really good. The police will handle Vanessa. The judge will see the evidence. Daniel's narrative is falling apart. Everything he has built is crumbling." Claire nodded slowly, but something nagged at her, a whisper in the back of her mind that would not be silenced. A cold feeling in her stomach that had nothing to do with her injuries. "This feels too easy," she said quietly. "What do you mean? Daniel has been planning this for months. You said so yourself. He has spent years building case, manipulating people, covering his tracks. He has contingency plans for his contingency plans. That is who he is. That is how he operates. He would not let everything collapse because of one video. He has backup plans. He always has backup plans. Marcus considered this, his expression thoughtful. You are right to be cautious. Daniel is not the type to be caught off guard. But right now, the evidence is on our side. We have video. We have witnesses. We have a victim with documented injuries. The security captain is on our side. The police are coming. Let us focus on that. But Claire could not shake the feeling that the other shoe was about to drop. Hard. She did not have to wait long. 20 minutes later, as they sat in a small conference room reviewing documents and planning their next steps, the door opened without warning. Daniel's lawyer returned. This time he was carrying a thick folder that looked like it contained enough paper to fill a novel. And he was wearing the kind of smile that made Claire's blood run cold. The smile of a man who was about to drop a bomb and wanted to watch the explosion. We are filing an emergency motion, Pierce announced, sliding papers across the table with practiced smoothness. His voice dripped with false regret, as if he was sorry about what he had to do but had no choice. Temporary custody transfer, based on evidence of mental instability. Marcus grabbed the documents, his eyes scanning rapidly. His face went pale, paler than Claire had ever seen it. On what grounds? Pierce's smile widened, revealing teeth that were too white, too perfect, the smile of a shark about to feed. We have 3 psychiatric professionals prepared to testify that Mrs. Bennett has exhibited erratic, paranoid, and potentially dangerous behavior throughout her pregnancy. We have detailed documentation of her mood swings, her unfounded accusations, her verbal threats. We also have documentation from her own obstetrician, Dr. Morrison, noting significant concerns about her mental state and her fitness as a mother. Claire's world tilted on its axis. The room spun around her. She gripped the arms of her wheelchair so hard she thought the metal might bend. That is not possible, she heard herself say, her voice coming from very far away. Dr. Morrison never said anything like that to me. He was always supportive. He told me I was doing great. He told me I was going to be a wonderful mother. The door opened behind Pierce. Daniel walked in, his expression perfectly composed, his suit immaculate, his hair styled without a single strand out of place. He looked like a man attending a routine business meeting, not a man whose mistress had just been arrested for assaulting his pregnant wife. He smiled at Claire, and the smile was worse than Vanessa's hatred, because Daniel's smile was calm, confident, the smile of a man who knew he had already won. Dr. Morrison is a family friend, Daniel said smoothly, his voice dripping with false concern. He and I play golf together every Sunday. We have known each other for 15 years. He has been documenting everything since the pregnancy began. Your mood swings, your paranoid accusations about my supposed affair, your threats to take my child away and disappear to another state, your increasingly unstable behavior. He is prepared to testify that you are unfit to be a mother. Claire felt like she had been punched in the stomach. Like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I never threatened anything like that. I never even thought about leaving the state. Daniel shrugged, the gesture deliberately casual, deliberately dismissive. The same gesture he had used for 3 years every time she confronted him about his lies. The court will decide what is true and what is not. He leaned closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. His breath was warm against her ear, and it made her skin crawl. You should have stayed quiet, Claire. You should have accepted the divorce settlement that I offered 6 months ago. You could have walked away with enough money to live comfortably, enough money to start over somewhere else. But you got greedy. You got stubborn. You started fighting back. And now you are going to lose everything. The baby, your reputation, your freedom, everything. I am going to take it all. And there is nothing you can do to stop me. Claire stared at him, seeing clearly for the first time the monster she had married. The man behind the charming smile and the expensive suits. The predator who had targeted her, isolated her, and was now trying to destroy her. But she did not feel afraid anymore. She felt angry. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is harassment. These accusations are fabricated, and we will prove it. Then prove it, Pierce replied calmly. gathering his papers with a satisfied smile. In the meantime, we will let the judge review our documentation. We have already scheduled an emergency hearing for this afternoon. 2:30, Judge Thornton's chambers. I suggest you be prepared. They left. The door clicked shut behind them. Claire sat frozen in her wheelchair, her mind racing through every doctor's appointment, every conversation, every moment of vulnerability she had shared during her pregnancy. Daniel had been weaponizing all of it. Every tear she cried during a difficult day, every fear she expressed about being a good mother, every moment of pregnancy hormones making her emotional. He had been sitting with Dr. Morrison, probably over expensive whiskey after their golf games, collecting ammunition for months, probably laughing about how easy she was to manipulate, and she had never even suspected. She had trusted her doctor. She had trusted her husband. She had trusted everyone except herself, but not anymore. Claire looked up at Marcus, and her brother saw something in her eyes that made him straighten. Something fierce, something dangerous, something that had been dormant for 3 years and was finally awake. 2:30? She said, her voice steady. Good, that gives us 3 hours. 3 hours for what? Marcus asked. Claire smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a woman who had been pushed too far and had finally decided to push back. 3 hours to find out exactly how dirty Daniel Bennett really is. 3 hours to destroy him the way he tried to destroy me. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter kick. Nobody threatens my baby, she said quietly. Nobody. The emergency hearing convened 1 hour later in Judge Patricia Thornton's chambers. The room was smaller than Claire expected, lined with law books and decorated with photographs of what appeared to be the judge's family. It felt almost intimate, which somehow made the stakes feel even higher. Claire sat in her wheelchair, still in her wrinkled navy dress, still bearing the visible injuries from the morning's attack. Bruises were forming on her arms where Vanessa had grabbed her. Her face was pale from pain and stress. She looked exactly like what she was, a pregnant woman who had been through hell. Beside her, Marcus prepared their defense with the focused intensity of a man going to war. His briefcase was open, documents arranged in careful order. He had changed into a fresh suit, projecting the image of a lawyer who was always prepared. Daniel sat across the room with Pierce, looking relaxed and confident. He had also changed into an even more expensive suit, if that was possible. He caught Claire's eye and smiled, the same smile he used to give her when they were dating, back when she thought he was charming instead of calculating, back when she believed his lies. Judge Thornton was a woman in her early 60s with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had presided over family court for 25 years and had earned a reputation that preceded her. She was known for 3 things: her encyclopedic knowledge of family law, her complete intolerance for drama, and her almost supernatural ability to detect when someone was lying. "Let us begin," she said briskly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who was accustomed to being obeyed. "Mr. Pierce, present your motion." Pierce launched into his argument with practiced smoothness, his voice resonating with false concern. He painted a picture of Claire as an unstable woman whose pregnancy hormones had triggered paranoid delusions about her husband's fidelity. He cited Dr. Morrison's carefully crafted notes, which documented Claire's supposed erratic behavior, mood swings, and verbal threats. "Your Honor," Pierce concluded, "we are simply asking for temporary protective measures. Mrs. Bennett's mental state poses a potential danger to herself and to the unborn child. We believe the child would be safer in Mr. Bennett's custody until a full psychiatric evaluation can be completed." Marcus countered immediately, his voice sharp and precise. "Your Honor, these allegations are not only false but transparently retaliatory. My client was physically assaulted this morning by Mr. Bennett's girlfriend. She was pushed down a flight of stairs while 8 months pregnant. And now, hours later, Mr. Bennett files a motion claiming that she is mentally unstable. The timing alone should give this court pause." He presented Claire's documented evidence: bank statements showing hidden accounts, receipts for jewelry, vacations, and a Porsche Daniel had purchased for Vanessa, phone records that contradicted Daniel's claims of marital dedication, credit card statements showing charges at romantic restaurants on nights Daniel claimed to be working late. Furthermore, Marcus continued, Dr. Morrison has received consulting fees from Bennett Development for the past 3 years. fees totaling over $200,000. He is not an objective medical professional. He is a paid associate of the defendant. Judge Thornton's expression sharpened with interest. She made a note on her pad. Go on. But it was the video footage that seemed to capture the judge's attention most completely. She watched it twice on Marcus's laptop, her expression unreadable. She watched Vanessa's approach. She watched the confrontation. She watched the push. She watched Claire fall. When it finished the second time, Judge Thornton looked directly at Daniel, her eyes cold. Mr. Bennett, did you witness this incident? Daniel's voice was steady, well-rehearsed. I heard a commotion and came to investigate. By the time I arrived, Claire was already on the ground. Vanessa was upset and disoriented. She told me Claire had grabbed her arm and lost her balance. She said she tried to catch her, but was not fast enough. That is not what this video shows, Judge Thornton said flatly, her tone leaving no room for interpretation. Videos can be misleading, Your Honor. Daniel spread his hands in a gesture of reasonableness. The angle does not capture the full context of what happened before the physical contact. There was a verbal altercation. Tempers were high. The physical contact, Judge Thornton repeated slowly. You mean when your girlfriend pushed your pregnant wife down a flight of stairs with both hands? Daniel's composure flickered for the first time. Just for a moment, a crack in the mask. Vanessa acted impulsively. She regrets it deeply. But that does not change the fact that Claire's mental state has been deteriorating for months. I have watched her spiral. I have tried to help her. But she refuses to accept that she needs treatment. Marcus stood up again. Your Honor, we can provide documentation that contradicts everything Mr. Bennett is claiming. His so-called psychiatric experts all have financial ties to his development company. Dr. Morrison is not just a golf buddy. He is on the company payroll. This entire motion is built on fabricated evidence designed to punish my client for standing up for herself. Judge Thornton raised her hand for silence. The room fell quiet. She studied the documents in front of her for a long moment, flipping through pages, making notes. The room held its breath. Claire could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Finally, Judge Thornton spoke. Her voice was measured but firm. I find the timing of this motion highly suspicious. A custody claim filed immediately after the defendant's associate who assaulted the plaintiff. Psychiatric allegations were presented hours after a physical attack. Documentation from a doctor who received significant payments from the defendant's company. She shook her head slowly. The emergency motion is denied. Mrs. Bennett will retain primary custody pending a full trial. Relief washed over Claire like a warm wave. She gripped the arms of her wheelchair so hard her knuckles turned white, afraid she might collapse from the sudden release of tension. But Judge Thornton was not finished. However, she continued, I am troubled by the conflicting accounts of this incident. I am ordering a full investigation into both parties' claims. Until that investigation is complete, both parents will have supervised contact only with the child after birth. And Mr. Bennett, she fixed him with a stare that could have frozen water. If I discover that any of this documentation has been fabricated, you will face serious consequences. Do you understand? Daniel's face tightened with barely controlled rage, but his voice remained smooth. Yes, Your Honor. I understand completely. As they filed out of chambers, Claire allowed herself a moment of hope. She had won this round. The judge had seen through Daniel's lies. The emergency motion had been denied. Maybe, just maybe, this nightmare was finally ending. That hope lasted exactly 4 minutes. Outside the courtroom, in the wide marble hallway where her nightmare had begun that morning, a man in a rumpled gray suit approached them. His badge identified him as Detective Howard Marsh. His face was weathered, his eyes tired but sharp. He looked like a man who had seen too much of humanity's worst. Mrs. Bennett? His voice was gruff but not unkind. I need to speak with you privately. It concerns a financial matter. Claire frowned, confused. What kind of financial matter? I do not understand. The detective glanced at Marcus, then back at Claire. His expression was carefully neutral. $2.3 million was transferred 3 weeks ago from your husband's business account into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The account is registered in your name. The world stopped. Claire could not breathe, could not think, could not process what she was hearing. The words seemed to hang in the air, impossible and terrifying. That is impossible, she finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. I do not have any offshore accounts. I have never even been to the Cayman Islands. Detective Marsh nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. That is what most people say when confronted with this kind of evidence. But the documentation is thorough, Mrs. Bennett. Your signature on the account application, your social security number, your mother's maiden name is the security question, even a copy of your driver's license. He set up that account, Claire said desperately, the truth hitting her with the force of a speeding train. He is framing me. This is part of his plan. Do you not see? That is a very serious accusation, Mrs. Bennett. Do you have any proof? Claire looked at Marcus, her eyes wide with horror. Marcus looked back at her, and for the first time all day, she saw uncertainty in his expression. Real doubt. We will find proof, Marcus said firmly, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. My sister is innocent. This is obviously a setup. I hope you can prove that, Detective Marsh replied, his tone neutral. Because right now, based on the evidence I have, I need Mrs. Bennett to come with me for questioning. You can accompany her as her attorney, Mr. Hale, but she needs to come with me now. The police station smelled like stale coffee, industrial cleaner, and desperation. Claire sat in an interrogation room that was smaller than her walk-in closet at home, the home she had shared with Daniel, the home that now felt like a prison she had escaped from only to find herself in a different kind of cell. She stared at a metal table bolted to the floor, its surface scarred with the marks of countless previous interrogations. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly greenish hue that made her bruises look even worse. A water stain on the ceiling looked vaguely like a butterfly, and she found herself staring at it, trying to find hope in the shape. Detective Marsh sat across from her, a thick folder open between them. He had been asking questions for 30 minutes. The same questions, rephrased in different ways, circling back around like a shark waiting for blood in the water. Mrs. Bennett, let us go over this again. You claim you had no knowledge of this offshore account? Claire's voice was hoarse from repetition, raw from holding back tears. I did not know about it because I did not open it. I have never opened an offshore account. I would not even know how to open an offshore account. My husband set it up to frame me. This is part of his plan. Your husband, Detective Marsh's tone was carefully neutral. The man you are currently divorcing, the man whose considerable assets you would benefit from seizing in a divorce settlement? I do not want his money. Claire leaned forward, desperate to be believed. I never wanted his money. I had my own career before I met him. I was an accountant, a good one. He made me give it up. All I want now is my freedom. I want my daughter to grow up safe and healthy, away from him. That is all I have ever wanted. Detective Marsh leaned back in his chair, studying her with eyes that had seen too many lies to be easily convinced. You understand how this looks from my perspective, Mrs. Bennett. A woman in the middle of a contentious, high-value divorce. $2.3 million suddenly appears in an account with her name on it, and now she claims her husband framed her. I hear some version of that story at least once a month. Claire closed her eyes against the tears that threatened to fall. She understood exactly how it looked. Daniel had constructed this trap with the same meticulous attention to detail he brought to his real estate deals. Every document, every signature, every digital trail led directly to her. He had probably been planning this for months, maybe longer. Long before she filed for divorce. Maybe even long before she got pregnant. She was being buried alive and the dirt was falling faster than she could dig. I know what you are thinking, she said quietly, opening her eyes to meet his gaze directly. You think I am just another desperate wife trying to blame her husband for her own crimes. You have probably heard that story 100 times. 1,000 times. Detective Marsh said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Claire took a deep breath, reaching for strength she was not sure she had left. But something had shifted inside her during this terrible day. Something had crystallized. She was done being silent, done being small, done letting other people write her story. For 3 years, she began, her voice growing stronger with each word. My husband made me believe I was crazy. He cheated on me and then convinced me I was imagining it. He would come home at 2 in the morning smelling like perfume, and when I asked where he had been, he would tell me I was being paranoid. He lied to my face and then made me apologize for not trusting him. He isolated me from my friends one by one until I had no one left but him. He made me quit my job because he said it was causing problems in our marriage. And then he systematically destroyed my confidence until I could not recognize myself in the mirror. Her voice grew stronger, fueled by years of suppressed anger finally finding an outlet. And now he is trying to take my child and my freedom. He has been planning this for months, maybe years. Every kind word was calculation. Every loving gesture was manipulation. Every promise was a lie told to keep me compliant until he was ready to discard me. I was never his wife. I was his mark, his target, his victim. And he is very, very good at what he does. Detective Marsh studied her for a long moment. The fluorescent light flickered. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang. And then something shifted in his expression. It was almost imperceptible, but definitely there. A softening around the eyes, a slight relaxation of his shoulders. My ex-wife did something similar, he said finally. Smaller scale, no offshore accounts, but the same playbook. Made me think I was losing my mind. Gaslit me for years. Took me 2 years to untangle the financial mess she created. Cost me my savings and almost cost me my career. Claire's breath caught. Then you understand. You know what this is like. I know. And I know how convincing someone can be when they have planned everything in advance. He closed the folder in front of him. What do you need me to look at? The question hung in the air like an offered hand. A lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. Claire grabbed it with both hands. The account was opened 7 months ago. That is when Daniel started planning this in earnest. Check the IP address that was used to create the account. Check the device signatures. Check the location data. I guarantee none of it will trace back to me or any device I have ever owned. Detective Marsh nodded slowly, making notes. What else? Check my schedule for that day. I keep a detailed calendar. I probably had a doctor's appointment or a meeting with my lawyer. I have been documenting everything for months because I knew he would try something. I just did not know what. The detective stood up. I will make some calls. You sit tight. He paused at the door. For what it is worth, Mrs. Bennett, I believe you. But belief does not matter in this room. Evidence does. Let us find some. Marcus arrived at the police station 2 hours later with reinforcements. He burst through the door of the interrogation room with a small, rumpled man in tow. The man had thick glasses, a receding hairline, and the kind of intense focus that suggested he lived more in spreadsheets than in the real world. This is William Chen, Marcus announced, slightly out of breath. He is one of the best forensic accountants in the state. He has traced money through shell companies that made the Enron accounting look straightforward. I found something, William said without preamble, spreading documents across the interrogation room table with the enthusiasm of a man who had just discovered buried treasure. The offshore account was created using a VPN to mask the originating IP address. Whoever set it up was trying to hide their tracks. But? Claire leaned forward, hope flickering in her chest. But VPN services keep logs, despite what they claim in their marketing. And this particular service provider was subpoenaed last year in a fraud case. The logs show the original connection came from a residential address in downtown Henderson. Claire held her breath. What address? William adjusted his glasses, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. 427 Riverside Drive, Unit 12B. Marcus's expression sharpened like a blade being drawn from a sheath. That is Vanessa Cole's apartment. I looked up her address when we started building the divorce case. Detective Marsh, who had been observing from the corner, stepped closer. His tired eyes had brightened with interest. You are saying the mistress helped set up the fraudulent account? It appears that way. William pointed to another document covered in numbers and timestamps. The account creation timestamp corresponds with the period when Mrs. Bennett was at a prenatal appointment across town. I have the medical records from Dr. Patterson to prove she could not have been at that location. Claire's hands trembled as the pieces fell into place. She helped him. Vanessa helped Daniel frame me. They planned this together. It gets better, William continued, practically bouncing on his heels. Or worse, depending on your perspective. The account application required a photo ID. A copy of a driver's license was uploaded. The license has Mrs. Bennett's information, but the photo has been digitally altered. It is a composite. Someone took a photo of Mrs. Bennett and modified it slightly to match the photo requirements. So they forged her identification, Marcus said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. Clumsily, yes. William shook his head. Whoever did this was good with money but not great with image manipulation. There are artifacts in the photo that any halfway competent forensic analyst would catch. They got sloppy. Detective Marsh reached for his radio, his decision made. I think it is time we had another conversation with Miss Cole. See if she is ready to talk. Wait, Claire said suddenly. Before you talk to her, you should know something about Vanessa. She is not as confident as she pretends to be. The whole lifestyle influencer thing is a facade. She is broke. She was drowning in debt when she met Daniel. He has been paying all her bills, buying her designer clothes, keeping her in that apartment. Without him, she has nothing. So she is dependent on him, Detective Marsh said slowly. Completely dependent. Which means if she thinks he is going to throw her under the bus, Claire continued, her accountant's mind seeing the leverage clearly, she might be willing to save herself. Daniel is not the type to go down with the ship. He will sacrifice anyone to save himself, including her. The detective smiled for the first time, a grim expression that did not quite reach his eyes. Good to know. Very good to know. Vanessa Cole had been in holding for nearly 8 hours by the time Detective Marsh entered her interrogation room for the second time that day. She was a far cry from the confident, polished woman who had pushed Claire down the stairs that morning. Her makeup was smeared, mascara tracking down her cheeks like black tears. Her red dress was wrinkled beyond repair. Her perfectly styled hair had fallen flat. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, like a balloon slowly deflating. The facade had crumbled, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. Miss Cole, Detective Marsh began, settling into the chair across from her with the patience of a man who had done this 1,000 times. We have some new information I think you should hear. I already told you everything, Vanessa said quickly, her voice hoarse from hours of crying and protesting. The push was an accident. I did not mean to hurt her. I was trying to stop Claire from falling. She grabbed me and I panicked. I tried to catch her. The detective smiled, but there was no warmth in it, the smile of a predator who had spotted weakness. I am not here about the push anymore, Miss Cole. I am here about the $2.3 million. Vanessa's face went pale, her artificial tan suddenly looking sickly. She gripped the edge of the table hard enough to turn her knuckles white. What are you talking about? The offshore account. The one you helped create using Claire Bennett's stolen identity. Detective Marsh slid a printout across the table slowly, deliberately. The IP address traces back to your apartment. The account was created on your home network, using your internet service. That is not possible. I never, Vanessa's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal looking for escape. Daniel Bennett is in another room right now, Detective Marsh interrupted, his voice casual, almost friendly. He is telling us that you acted alone, that he had no knowledge of the account or the fraud. He is saying you manipulated him into helping you. He is painting himself as another one of your victims. The color drained from Vanessa's face completely. Her mouth opened and closed several times before words came out. He would not do that. He loves me. He promised we would be together. He already did. Detective Marsh leaned forward, his voice dropping to a confidential tone. He is throwing you under the bus, Miss Cole. He is probably talking to his lawyers right now about how to distance himself from you completely. The question is, are you going to let him? Are you going to take the fall for everything while he walks away clean? For a long moment, Vanessa said nothing. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms hard enough to draw blood. Then something in her expression shifted. The desperation transformed into something else entirely. Rage. Hot, burning rage. The rage of a woman who had finally realized she had been played. He told me to do it. Her voice cracked, breaking like glass. He gave me all her information, her social security number, her mother's maiden name, everything. He said it was just moving money around for the divorce. He said lawyers did this kind of thing all the time. Go on, Detective Marsh prompted quietly. He said once Claire was in prison for embezzlement, we would use the money to start fresh. Vanessa's words came faster now, tumbling over each other in her urgency to tell the truth. He promised me everything. He said he was going to divorce her as soon as the baby was born. He said we would be married by Christmas. He said I was the one he really loved, that Claire was just a mistake he needed to fix. Detective Marsh slid a notepad and pen across the table. Write it all down. Everything he told you to do. Everything he promised. Every detail you can remember. Vanessa grabbed the pen like a lifeline, her hand shaking. I have texts, hundreds of texts, maybe thousands. He planned everything, every step. He is meticulous. He writes everything down. The detective's eyebrows rose. He put his plans in writing. He thought it was safe. We used a messaging app that deletes messages after 24 hours. But I took screenshots of everything because I did not trust him completely. She laughed bitterly at the irony. I guess I was right not to trust him. What else is in those texts? Vanessa looked up, her eyes red and swollen but clear for the first time. Everything, the account, the fake psychiatric reports, the plan to make Claire look crazy, even the push. Detective Marsh went very still. The push was planned. Vanessa nodded slowly. He said if I could make her fall at the courthouse, it would strengthen his custody case. He said if she got hurt, really hurt, it would prove how fragile and accident-prone she was, and if she lost the baby. She stopped, her voice breaking completely. Tears streamed down her face. If she lost the baby, even better for him. He said she was just an obstacle, that once she was gone, we would have everything. I thought he meant gone like divorced, but now I think maybe he meant something else, something worse. The room fell silent. Detective Marsh sat back in his chair, processing what he had just heard. Then he stood up. Miss Cole, I am going to need those screenshots, and I am going to need you to write down everything, every single thing he ever told you about Claire Bennett. Can you do that? Vanessa nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Yes, I can do that. I want to do that. I want him to pay for what he did to me. To us. To her. Claire stood in the courthouse hallway for the second time that day, but everything had changed. The marble floors still gleamed under the late afternoon sun streaming through the tall windows. The same portraits of stern judges lined the walls. The same echo carried every footstep and whisper. But the woman standing in that hallway was not the same woman who had been pushed down those stairs that morning. That woman had been afraid. This woman was not. Daniel Bennett was in handcuffs. Two police officers flanked him, their hands firm on his arms as they prepared to escort him to a waiting patrol car. His expensive suit was rumpled now, stained with sweat. His perfect hair was disheveled. His silk tie had been loosened, hanging crooked like a noose that had not quite tightened yet. And his confident smile had vanished completely, replaced by something that looked remarkably like fear. Real fear, the fear of a man who had finally run out of lies. Claire walked toward him slowly, each step deliberate, each footfall echoing in the sudden silence that had fallen over the hallway. She had refused the wheelchair. She would face him standing on her own 2 feet. The crowd that had gathered parted before her like water before a ship. Reporters lifted cameras, their flashes creating a strobe effect. Clerks stopped mid-task. Lawyers paused their conversations. Everyone wanted to witness what came next. She stopped directly in front of Daniel, close enough to see the sweat beading on his forehead, close enough to smell his expensive cologne mixed with the sour scent of panic. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched like a held breath, like the pause between lightning and thunder. Claire. Daniel's voice was different now. Gone was the smooth confidence, the casual cruelty. In its place was something desperate, pleading, almost pitiful. This is all a misunderstanding. Vanessa is lying. She is trying to save herself by blaming me. You know I would never hurt you. You know me. We had 3 years together. Claire studied his face. The face she had loved once, or thought she loved. The face that had lied to her for 3 years. The face that had smiled at her while plotting her destruction. The face that had promised to love her until death and had apparently considered making that happen sooner rather than later. Stop, she said quietly. He stopped. His mouth hung open mid-excuse, words dying on his lips. For 3 years, Claire continued, her voice growing stronger with each word, I listened to you tell me who I was. Crazy, paranoid, worthless, dramatic, hysterical, unstable. You had 100 words for me, Daniel, and none of them were true. She took another step closer. He tried to step back, but the officers held him in place. And I believed you. That is what haunts me. I believed every terrible thing you said about me. I let you convince me that your voice mattered more than my own. I let you make me small so you could feel big. Daniel started to interrupt, his mouth forming excuses. Claire held up her hand, and somehow that small gesture was enough to silence him completely. But here is what you never understood about me, Daniel. She let a small smile cross her face. I am an accountant. I find discrepancies for a living. I spent 10 years learning how to look at numbers and see the truth hidden behind them. And you were the biggest discrepancy of my life. The numbers never added up. Your stories never quite matched. Your excuses always had holes. I just finally stopped pretending they did not. Daniel's composure cracked like ice breaking apart in spring. Claire, please, we can work this out. Think about the baby. Think about our family. I can make this all go away. I have resources. I have connections. Claire leaned closer, close enough that only he could hear her next words. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You wanted me to fall? I did, and I got back up. You wanted me to break? I bent. God knows I bent, but I never snapped. And now she straightened, her voice rising for everyone to hear. The reporters leaned in, the cameras flashed, the crowd held its breath. Now you fall, and you do not get back up. She turned and walked away. Her shoulders were straight, her head was high, her hand rested gently on her belly, where her daughter kicked as if applauding. Behind her, Daniel called her name. Once, twice, 3 times. His voice grew more desperate with each repetition, cracking and breaking like a man watching everything he had built crumble to dust. Claire, Claire, please. Claire, wait. Claire, you cannot do this. Claire, she did not look back, not once. Marcus met her at the end of the hallway, his expression caught somewhere between fierce pride and overwhelming relief. His eyes were suspiciously bright. You did it. We did it, Claire corrected, taking his hand and squeezing tight. I could not have survived today without you, without Rita, without Dorothy Chambers and her phone, without all of them. You survived because of you. Marcus shook his head. I just helped with the paperwork. Everything that mattered, you did yourself. They walked toward the courthouse exit together. Rita Mitchell was waiting near the doors, tears streaming down her cheeks, making no effort to hide them. Honey, that was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in this building. And I have been here 20 years. That man got exactly what he deserved. Claire hugged her tightly. Thank you for everything you did today. Judge Thornton appeared from a nearby doorway, still in her black robes. She approached Claire with an expression that was almost warm, which from her was practically effusive. Mrs. Bennett, a moment? Claire nodded, surprised. Your mother was my college roommate, Judge Thornton said quietly, so only Claire could hear. Eleanor Dawson. We were best friends freshman year. She always told me you were stronger than you knew. She said you had a fire in you that just needed the right moment to spark. She asked me to keep an eye on you if you ever came through my court. I am glad I could finally help. Claire's eyes filled with tears. You knew my mother? She was a remarkable woman. The judge's voice softened with genuine emotion. She would be so proud of you today, so incredibly proud. And clearly she raised a remarkable daughter. Judge Thornton squeezed Claire's hand briefly, then walked away, her robes swishing against the marble floor. The sun was setting by the time Claire finally stepped outside. Golden light spilled across the courthouse steps, the same steps where her world had nearly ended that morning. She stood at the top and looked down at them, remembering the terror of the fall, the desperate twist to protect her baby, the cold marble against her cheek. Then she looked up at the sky, painted in shades of orange and pink and gold. Her hand rested on her belly. Her baby kicked, strong and insistent, full of life and fight. Claire smiled, a real smile. The first genuine, unguarded smile she had managed in longer than she could remember. It felt strange on her face, like a language she had forgotten and was just beginning to relearn. She walked down those stairs slowly, carefully, savoring each step. At the bottom, she paused and turned back for one final look at the building where everything had changed. She had fallen here. She had been pushed down by someone who wanted to destroy her. She had hit every step on the way down. She had felt her baby go still and thought her world was ending. And she had gotten back up. That was the only thing that mattered to me. 3 months later, Claire stood in a bright, sunny apartment holding her newborn daughter. Morning light streamed through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold and cream. The nursery was small but perfect, decorated in soft yellows and gentle greens. She looked down at the tiny face in her arms. Perfect, healthy, safe. Her daughter's eyes were closed, her small chest rising and falling with each peaceful breath. She had Claire's nose and somehow her mother's smile. "You are going to grow up knowing your voice matters," Claire whispered, her lips brushing against her daughter's soft forehead. "No one will ever make you feel small. No one will ever make you doubt yourself. No one will ever convince you that their truth is more important than your own. I promise." On the wall behind her hung a framed photograph of her mother, Eleanor Dawson, smiling at the camera with the same stubborn determination Claire saw in her own reflection now. On her desk sat her accountant certification, newly reactivated, alongside a stack of job offers from firms that had heard about the woman who had taken down Daniel Bennett. And in her heart lived something she had thought was lost forever, something Daniel had tried to kill, something that had refused to die, hope. She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Somewhere out there, Daniel was awaiting trial on charges that would keep him in prison for years. Vanessa had taken a plea deal and was cooperating with the prosecutors, her testimony ensuring that Daniel would never hurt anyone again. The offshore account had been traced, the fraud exposed, the psychiatric reports debunked, the truth finally revealed. But Claire was not thinking about any of that. She was thinking about the future, her daughter's future, their future together. "I used to think my story was about surviving a bad marriage," she murmured to her sleeping baby. "But it was not. It was about remembering who I was before someone tried to erase me. It was about finding my voice after years of being silenced. It was about learning that falling down is not the end of the story. Getting back up is." She pressed a gentle kiss to her daughter's forehead. "And if anyone out there is listening, if anyone feels erased or invisible or lost, if anyone is living with someone who makes them feel crazy for seeing what is right in front of them, I want you to know something. You are still there. You are still whole, and your story is not over." She thought about all the women who had helped her. Rita with her sharp tongue and network of contacts, Dorothy Chambers with her phone and her willingness to testify, Judge Thornton with her mother's words echoing across decades, even Detective Marsh, who had believed her when he could have dismissed her. None of them had been obligated to help. All of them had chosen to. "That is the other thing I learned," Claire whispered. "You do not have to fight alone. There are people who will stand with you. You just have to be brave enough to let them." Her daughter stirred, making a small sound that was not quite a cry, more like a question. Claire smiled and began to rock gently, humming a lullaby her mother used to sing. Through the window, she watched the sun rise higher over a city full of possibilities. A new day was beginning. A new life was beginning. And for the first time in years, Claire was not afraid of what it might bring. She had fallen. She had gotten back up. And she was never, ever going down again.